Craving the coffee flavor you love, but without the caffeine? Kachava's got you covered with their newest coffee flavor. This all-in-one nutrition shake delivers bold, authentic flavor, crafted from premium decaffeinated Brazilian beans. With 25 grams of protein, 6 grams of fiber, greens, and so much more. Treat yourself to the flavor and nutrition your body craves. Go to kachava.com and use code NEWS. New customers get 15% off their first order. That's KACHAVA.com, code NEWS.
The political pit bull off the leash again. Pierre Poilievre in attack mode. This is Now You Know. I'm Rob Snow.
Navigating the issues that matter to you. It's Now You Know with Rob Snow on News Radio.
Pierre Poilievre is back on the attack, and his target is the economic record and the academic credentials of Prime Minister Mark Carney. During an interview this week with Chris Sims of the Canadian Taxpayers Federation, Poilievre said the Prime Minister was poorly educated. And he said Mr. Carney has been wrong on all the major economic issues of the last decade.
Keep in mind that there's one thing that's worse than being uneducated, and it's being badly educated. And Mr. Carney is very badly educated on economics. And that is why he has been wrong on every single economic issue of our time, every one of them.
The Prime Minister was asked about that comment this week, and he laughed it off.
Pierre Poilievre called you badly educated in economics, and he did.
Wow.
So I'd like to hear a little bit about...
Can I take back my previous answer? No, I'm just kidding. That's a joke.
During an event in front of a business audience in Toronto yesterday, the Conservative Party leader doubled down on his criticism of Mark Carney's economic record.
And Mr. Carney has been wrong about every major economic issue of the last decade. When he was the head of the Bank of England, he printed money, leaving that country with the worst inflation in the G7 and a housing crisis that deprived an entire generation of youth of home ownership. He wrongly predicted that COVID would cause deflation, that prices would drop. And the result was that he advised governments to print copious amounts of money, giving us the worst inflation in 40 years. And all through 2020, while I was warning that inflation would result from this spending and printing, what did Mr. Carney say in a December 2020 interview, well after the realities of COVID were very well known? He said, "Do I worry about inflation? Look, in the horizon of a normal central banker, 2 or 3 years, the horizon for monetary policy, it is unlikely to materialize to a serious extent." End quote. 2 years later, on schedule, we had the worst inflation in 40 years.
For the better part of 20 minutes, Poilievre tore into what he sees as the Prime Minister's disastrous record, saying Mr. Carney suffers from the illusion of knowledge.
The gap between Mr. Carney's boasting and his results is perhaps unprecedented. As Daniel Boorstin said, the greatest enemy of knowledge is not ignorance, it is the illusion of knowledge. And he's doing it all over again here in Canada. What all Mr. Carney's policies have in common is that they drive costs up and wages down for the working class people, and they drive wealth into the hands of a small group of well-connected political elites through subsidies, grants, and other payouts. And here's the point, my friends. After a year of Mark Carney, the economy is poorer, weaker, and more expensive than ever before.
Liberal boosters don't quite see it that way. They see a Conservative leader who is losing MPs to the Liberals at breakneck speed, and an opposition party that trails the Liberals by double digits in most of the polls. Susan Smith is a longtime Liberal strategist with Blue Sky Strategy Group. She says Poilievre is desperately trying to convince his own MPs that he's worth keeping around.
4 MPs crossing the floor is an absolute bloodletting, I think, from a Conservative caucus perspective. He's now out talking to people, and it's a bit talking to caucus and a bit talking to Canadians. He won the party lost the country. Now he has to try and win his caucus back. There is a piece of legislation called the Reform Act, and only 28 of his MPs, of the remaining 140 in caucus, need to sign a petition to have a leadership review. So he's not only got to convince the country that he's a good alternative, he's got to keep his party in check. And that's not a done deal. I think the iron grip's kind of watered down to spaghetti at this point in the game.
NDP strategist George Sewell thinks Poilievre is trying to convince Canadians of things that just aren't real.
The idea of trying to compare Mark Carney and say he's the same as Justin Trudeau, which is a lot of that message we just saw in the clip about how nothing has really changed since Justin Trudeau, like, no one's going to buy that. I mean, it's just, it's an absurd suggestion. It doesn't fit into anything that's real out there. And I don't think that, and so that's one. And I think two, going after Mr. Carney, whether it's about his education or even just as he did in this speech about Mr. Carney's economic bona fides, like, those things are things that people intrinsically believe about Mr. Carney. So trying to go after those two, like to say that he's the same as Justin Trudeau or that he's not a good economist, both those two arguments are super weak and just won't pass any nod test. So I don't know what he's trying to do with this.
With the Liberals now locked in with the majority government following the floor crossings and the by-election wins, the House of Commons is moving into one of its busiest times of the year, with MPs in session until the middle of May in the lead up to the Victoria Day long weekend. There will be a spring economic update on April 29th. Before that, we will see a new reading on inflation. That will be the big news story on Monday. The inflation report comes out Monday morning. I'm Rob Snow. This is Now You Know. This is News Radio.
There is no question Rob won't get answered.
Now You Know with Rob Snow continues
on News Radio.
He's our expert in communications, crisis communications, political communications, branding, and leadership. Barry McLoughlin is the president of TLC, Transformational Leadership Consultants, with offices in Ottawa and Washington, D.C. He teaches at the University of Ottawa's Professional Development Institute and at Cape Breton University's Shannon School of Business. You can follow Barry on his Substack. You can listen to his podcast, and he joins us every Friday. Welcome back.
Thanks, Rob. Always great to chat with you.
It's actually feeling like spring in the nation's capital, Barry.
Oh, unbelievable. Like, this is the first day that, it's sunny, it's warm, up to 19. There'll be patio chairs out there. Sens Mile will be loaded outside. I mean, it'll be fantastic.
I mean, for the last week, I thought I was living in Lewisburg. It's been so cloudy and rainy, but
absolutely.
I guess it's that time of the year. But
absolutely,
yeah,
beautiful.
We deserve it. Okay, let's jump right into things here. Pierre Poilievre isn't pleased, obviously, that the Liberals have their majority government. I would like your reaction to what we're hearing from the Conservative leader and his criticisms of Prime Minister Carney, his economic record, and his academic credentials. So let's listen to a clip, Pierre Poilievre being interviewed by a good friend of mine, Chris Sims, from the Canadian Taxpayers Federation. We used to work in the radio business together, but let's listen to this.
Keep in mind that there's only there's one thing that's worse than being uneducated, and it's being badly educated. And Mr. Carney is very badly educated on economics. And that is why he has been wrong on every single economic issue of our time, every one of them.
So it was a few days ago, and then yesterday he was giving a speech in Toronto to the business crowd in Toronto. Let's play that, please.
The gap between Mr. Carney's boasting and his results is perhaps unprecedented. As Daniel Boorstin said, the greatest enemy of knowledge is not ignorance, it is the illusion of knowledge. And he's doing it all over again here in Canada. What all Mr. Carney's policies have in common is that they drive costs up and wages down for the working class people, and they drive wealth into the hands of a small group of well-connected political elites through subsidies, grants, and other payouts. And here's the point, my friends. After a year of Mark Carney, the economy is poorer, weaker, and more expensive than ever before.
What do you think about what you're hearing from Pierre Poilievre?
I think it's not a good idea. It's certainly not strategic. Good tactical versus bad strategy. Bad strategy means, how am I framing this in the first place? It has to be framed as a question. Who's going to stand up and fight for you is a framing versus who's better educated, me or that guy, Mark Carney? Sorry, we already know the answer when it's halfway out of your mouth. So there's no way that he should be defining the basis of his argument, comparing, in effect, comparing his quality education, his knowledge against Prime Minister Carney, former governor of two countries' national banks. People already, that's the upside for Carney. Why are you playing into his upside? You got to play into the downside. And usually the downside framing for Liberals is arrogance. They can't help themselves. Within a year, they're going to be arrogant. Hang on to your hats. So, that's the difference between I'm smarter than he is. No, nobody believes that. And instead of let's pick one that the Liberals inevitably fall into a trap. Why do you think the Prime Minister used this word humility about 3 times when he came to the House with the new crossover or the new by-election winners? He used the word humility several times. Right. He knows the downside for me will be if they spot us or feel that we're just being arrogant, not listening to Canadians. He knows that. So that should have been the signal for Mr. Carney there. He did use the word arrogance, interestingly enough, but he didn't use it as his big theme. So I think it was a mistake.
So what would you have preferred to hear? Because what I'm hearing is, are you better off? What's really changed? And this was a theme throughout his speech yesterday. What's really changed? Okay, there's a new Liberal leader, there's a new Prime Minister, but what's really changed? Are you better off? Well, are you better off is a classic political question, Barry.
Well, here's the problem with it. It's ill-timed. 1 year into his... Are you better off than you were when Mark Carney got in there a year ago? Well, nobody's going to ask that question because they just got in. So, no, you have to wait later in the mandate to go, now we've had 3.5 years of Mark Carney. And are you any better off than you were in the day he took office? No, you're not. So that's when it's usable. So I'm finding it an awkward kind of thing that he's jumping in with that. Most Canadians will say in polling, I've read it, obviously they know they have to give him a bit of a chance. He's laying out a foundation. Let's see if he can deliver on it. You hear time after time on the streeters, people are saying, well, we'll have to see if this works. We'll give him a chance to see if this is going to work. We'll find out what's going to happen in the CUSMA negotiations. We'll have to wait and see. So right now he is the gift of timing. He is the gift of people have figured out the realities of the world and know that these things take some time. So he is gifted by that, and try to attack him for, are you any better off after a year is way too premature. So I think that was kind of wrong.
Okay. When we come back, I really want your take on Justin Trudeau. The post-political Justin Trudeau that we see. Mr. Trudeau skiing with Prince Harry. Mr. Trudeau at Coachella with his pop star girlfriend. Some people are annoyed by this, Barry. I want to know what you think. When we come back, Barry McLoughlin is with us from TLC, Transformational Leadership Consultants. I'm Rob Snow. This is News Radio.
You have questions.
Now you know with Rob Snow has the answers.
On News Radio.
We're back with Barry McLoughlin from TLC, Transformational Leadership Consultants. Let's talk about Justin Trudeau. Hey, there's Justin Trudeau skiing with Prince Harry. There's Justin Trudeau hanging out with Katy Perry at Coachella. Baseball cap on backwards, eating takeout. There are many columns this week, Barry, about Mr. Trudeau's post-political life. Some people think it's cringe. Others have written, it makes me want to gag. There's one in the Toronto Star today is very sympathetic. Oh, we should be happy that he's happy. Let's just be happy for the guy. I think it's kind of weird that a 54-year-old man, former G7 world leader, seems to be behaving like a teenager. To me, it kind of has the stench of someone who wants to just remain relevant. Like, hey, please don't forget about me, even if it's just tabloid relevance. He's like Canada's Meghan Markle to me. That's my own opinion. What's your opinion?
Well, I did have a gut reaction when I saw the reverse baseball cap. I thought, oh, God, are we really going there with this? But anyway, I think, first of all, about Justin Trudeau, I think we all kind of know him a little bit, and a lot of us do. And, he's always had a penchant for the camera. He knows always where it is vis-a-vis him. He knows it. I've talked to so many that have taken his videos and photos and said he'll turn and say, have you got the right angle here? Like, he really is aware of the camera. Fully and completely. He was the king of the selfie when they first started. He was the master of it. He does like public attention. I've seen him so many times light up a room. He has a personality and a charisma that's, star watt power. He loves hanging out with celebrities, always did. Similar to his father in this way. His father was a philosopher king. I mean, he was truly a thoughtful, intellectual man. And he could go from zero to suddenly lighting up a room, but he could go to zero and be very comfortable with it. Justin's very different. Justin feeds and craves that public attention. I don't think he's considered, as you said, a former prime minister, G7 leader. He has a role to play in an uncertain world, to provide reassurance, to provide perspective, to provide the kind of wisdom that a leader in 10 years in office would be able to provide. Instead, he's kind of going the other way. And he is entitled, of course, fully to his own personal private life. He's got young kids. One's a rapper. I get that he kind of likes that scene. But I think he's got to realize. But
is it dignified? Is it dignified?
He's got to realize that's right. You're not.
Maybe I'm being petty. I don't want to be petty, but
anyway, the bottom line is that I think that it's important he realized he does have an international role to play, and it isn't just messing around at the latest music festival and so on. I think he has to take it a little more seriously. And certainly he has a right to his private life, so nobody's criticizing that. So all in all, I think this was not a big positive for him. It certainly brought him back into the headlines, the international media, but I don't think that should be the goal, in any way.
No. Yeah, he has a right to his private life, but not if he's slapping it up to 1 million followers on Instagram or whatever. So, hey, let me ask you one more quick question, because I just caught this a couple of hours ago. You remember Doug Ford and Rob Ford? What was their famous line? Got to stop the gravy train, right? Got to stop the gravy train. The government just bought a private plane for Doug Ford. And you know what the opposition is calling it?
Oh.
The gravy plane.
Oh, well,
gravy
I'll say
plane.
Quick.
Private plane for Doug Ford. Like, that's not on brand for Doug Ford.
No, but I think, I was around when Mike Harris got the jet, and you'd be in a meeting in Harris and some aide would come in, sir, wheels up at 10:45, so they always like to use that phrase, wheels up. Because a premier of Ontario has to fly up to Northern Ontario for an announcement, get back in time for question period all over. It's not just Toronto. It's a huge, big province. So I actually using it for that purpose. But if it sits on that runway for 5 days in between, he's got to make sure he's allowing other ministers and others to use it for government business only. He has to watch that very carefully because it's a symbol as much as it is a form of transportation.
Air Ford One. What do you think of that, Barry? Air Ford One. Welcome aboard Air Ford One. All right.
Bad.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Enjoy the weather, Barry. Go Sens go, right? Barry, go Sens go.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Yeah, bye-bye. Barry McLoughlin from TLC Transformational Leadership Consultants. Tom Korski here from Blacklocks. With some of the stories from Blacklocks this week, folks, take your blood pressure medication.
No question goes unasked or unanswered.
Now You Know with Rob Snow returns on News Radio.
He's been minding Ottawa's business all week long. Tom Korski is back with us, the managing editor at Blacklock's Reporter. Welcome back.
Thank you very much, Rob.
Sometimes it takes a while for them to catch up with you and me, Tom, but the press gallery's getting there. I want to pick up on a conversation that we had last week about the makeup of the Commons committees, because this is the most, I think, significant development stemming from the majority government that the Liberals now have, is the makeup of the committees. This is where the real work happens. And big changes are coming because the Liberals are going to want to make a move on that now that they have their majority. And we're going to play a couple of clips here. We have Steve McKinnon is the old veteran of the Liberal caucus. He's from West Quebec, just across the river in Elmer, Quebec. And he's the government House leader. So he's navigating all of this. And he was asked, what about the committees? Are you going to try and get the majority on the committees now that you have the majority in the House? And this is what he said.
Look, we're still assessing what that might look like. I think there's a generally accepted principle that committees reflect the composition of Parliament. And you can expect news on that not too far away.
You can expect news on that not too far away. Not good news for the opposition, and the Conservatives had a news conference about this. And Andrew Scheer is the opposition House leader, and he is saying essentially, not so fast. It's not about the makeup of the House determining the majority vote on these committees. It's about the results of the last election. Let's listen to that.
The overwhelmingly long precedence of how this House has operated for decades, if not the entire time, since 1867, has been that the composition of committees are arrived at through negotiations to reflect the results of the ballot box in a general election. So we are in unprecedented territory. Never before has a prime minister fundamentally tried to change the nature of the government that he was elected on from the people through these kinds of backroom deals. So we are in unprecedented territory, and what we're saying today is let's uphold the tradition that the committee makeup is reflective of the results at the ballot box. We are calling on Liberals not to stack the deck.
Well, I wish him well with that. What do you think is going to happen with the makeup of these committees, Tom?
Oh, sure. Cabinet has to take control of those committees. They have to quash those investigations. Anyone who thinks this is inside baseball, I got to tell you, Rob, you and I have discussed in the past, those committees have initiated more investigations. They have threatened more witnesses, reluctant witnesses with subpoenas. They have uncovered more documents that led to more RCMP investigations. They've saved Cabinet a fortune. But it is exactly out of self-preservation that when any party has a majority of votes in the House of Commons, you can do anything you want. You can run the table. And that's exactly what they're going to do. Job one is to quash those investigations. That doesn't mean that everything is sunshine and flowers for the rest of whatever remains in the term. It does mean the opposition will merely spill over that conflict into the floor of the House of Commons. But the days of subpoenas are done. It's finished.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think a present day issue that would be relevant to this conversation would be, for example, what's happening with Alto, the high-speed rail project, and what has been uncovered already about the finance minister and his partner, and whether nepotism is involved, and maybe more with Alto, Tom.
Sure, that's a classic example. I'll give you another one, which is out of the Commons Health Committee. There's a consultant called Myers, Norris & Penny, now MNP. Their headquarters is in Calgary. They started in Brandon, Manitoba, my old hometown. And Myers, Norris & Penny, MNP, was commissioned by the Department of Health to get to the bottom of what happened with the Canada Dental Plan. Everyone famously knows about the free dentistry. Overhead costs went through the roof. They came in at like 9% compared to an average of 5%. No one could understand why. MPs have been after this. It was disclosed, forgive me, inadvertently, I think almost accidentally, in the Senate National Finance Committee last winter. We got a hold of the report. MPs have been after that. Who paid off their speedboat on administration costs of that dental plan? Now, we always say in the newsroom, Rob, everything comes out eventually, but you better believe that Cabinet is in no rush to have that disclosure.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Okay. Let's move along. There was a committee meeting this week. Is a meeting of the Heritage Committee where all were gathered to talk about financial support for the news media, subsidies for the news. Okay. What came out of that meeting?
It was brutal, frankly. The program was supposed to be temporary aid. People recall this goes back to 2019, famously a $500 million bailout for money-losing newspapers. And it was supposed to be temporary, and it was really sold on a lie. I don't want to use rough language. Taxpayers were misled. The general public was misled. There have been consequences to that ever since, and the point was made by current and former editors in testimony before the Heritage Committee that all you've done is compromise media in this country. In other words, the person on the street accepts now what the genius publishers don't accept, that you cannot be reliant on government aid and independent of government control at the same time. The people aren't that stupid. They are in a really tough spot, Rob.
Yeah, I mean, it seemed like an absolute gong show to me. I watched a little bit of that committee. I honestly couldn't take much of it, Tom. It's become kind of a feeding frenzy when it comes to this topic. Who should get the money? Who shouldn't get the money? Should there be any money at all? What is a newsroom? What is a journalist? All of these things. It's just shambles, really. It really, really is. Okay, when we come back, on to other things. Canada Post. And so it begins for Canada Post, a great transformation for every single address in the country to a community mailbox, including in the riding of Carleton. We'll talk about that when we come back. This is News Radio.
Critical thinking is not dead.
Now you know with Rob Snow.
Returns on News Radio.
Tom Korski, back with us, the managing editor at Blacklock's Reporter. And so it begins, Tom, the transformation to community mailboxes for all for Canada Post. What can you tell us?
Not very popular, but Canada Post, you're right, is pressing ahead with a blacklist of the first of the ridings, neighborhoods by postal code that are going to lose doorstep mail delivery. That's a pretty serious service cut. This is millions of homes that now get doorstep mail delivery are going to be converted to mandatory community mailboxes. And many old-time neighborhoods, this is no small controversy. Ratepayers don't enjoy it. And it's a big deal about where you put these boxes, less of an issue in new subdivisions. Well, Canada Post comes up with their blacklist. And who is on it? But 13 Liberal MPs, including the Minister of Defence, and Bruce Fanjoy, new MP for Carleton, Ontario. Welcome aboard as the Minister of Public Works, who is responsible for the post office, put it. We have to be courageous.
But Bruce Fanjoy portrayed himself as the courageous one, of course, in the run-up to the last federal election, who would not only protect people from public sector layoffs, but now his riding is going to lose home delivery of the mail. You know, there's been a little bit of myth-making going on. I will just say this when it comes to the victory of Bruce Fanjoy. I'm not how should I say this? I'm having a hard time getting the words out. Look, Bruce Fanjoy, it wasn't a one-man show for Bruce Fanjoy in the riding of Carleton. That is a riding just on the outskirts, suburban Ottawa, used to be rural Ottawa. And it was really the only riding that wasn't solidly with the Liberals in the entire National Capital region. It's all red and had been for a long time, except for that one little blue dot that was held by Pierre Poilievre, right? So what was happening during the election campaign was you had MPs like Yasser Naqvi from right downtown Ottawa, David McGuinty, as you mentioned, from Ottawa South, Jenna Sudds from the Canada area, all Liberal MPs from Ottawa. What were they doing? Were they knocking on doors in their own ridings? Yeah, sometimes they were during the election campaign, but they spent a lot of time in Bruce Fanjoy's riding. It was a total Liberal team effort in that election campaign to defeat Poilievre. But all's fair in love and war, and in politics, if you want a friend, get a dog. That's the old saying. So there you go. All right, on to other things. We got a lot of stuff to get to here. The housing department budgeted $1.2 million to give cameras to homeless people. What the heck, Tom?
true. It was a $1.2 million program. Funding was approved. And the idea was to give cameras to homeless people so they could take pictures of their surroundings. And then they were going to take the pictures and they were going to put it into what they described as an arts-based exhibition. What was the point of all this? Well, according to the project summary we see through access to information, selected photographs plus an author's statement will be used at the exhibit. Take a picture of what? Well, I'm quoting from the project summary. Take pictures of your surroundings, you homeless man, your environment, the spaces you navigate, sleep, eat, spend time relaxing or with others. Think about what the image reveals about your living space, but that's not the best part, Rob. They gave it to an LGBTQ advocacy lobby group based in Toronto called Egal Canada. They have been funded for decades by the taxpayers of Canada.
Yeah.
And Egal Canada was going to limit this to homeless gay veterans. They were going to find 30 of them in Vancouver, Calgary, Toronto, Ottawa, and Halifax. And they were you had to be homeless, you had to be gay, and you had to be a veteran. And they were going to take the picture and they were going to put it in the exhibit. Well, it didn't work out, but the concept itself was not sufficiently bizarre that the department didn't rubber stamp the application. Unbelievable.
Administrative costs, $153,800. Capital costs, I'm assuming that's the cameras, $2,800. Okay, $2,800. Staff wages, $945,000 for a total of $1,199,000. That was the budget for this little thing. All right, finally, just one more. Time for one more. A few weeks ago, we were talking about this, what should we call it? The net zero garage in Whitehorse, Tom? The net zero garage that looks completely nondescript building that you would see in any industrial park anywhere in the country. Okay, but it's net zero. You've learned more about the costs of this. How much did it cost?
Well, it was budgeted originally at $750,000. This is a 2,000 square foot maintenance garage.
Yes.
And then it came in, according to a department audit, at $1.4 million. Don't touch that dial. It actually cost the taxpayer $1.8 million when the department could have leased other heated garages in the town of in Yukon, in Whitehorse. We call it the Taj Garage in the newsroom.
The Taj Garage. I love that.
I don't know how you could spend $1.8 million on what is basically a shed.
Yeah, $1.8 million. But it's net zero, Tom. Net zero. It is net zero. Awesome.
All about climate, Rob. It is.
Isn't
so
that
true.
Awesome? Okay. Thank you. Speak
Thank
next
you,
week.
Rob.
Great to hear from you. Bye-bye. Yep. This is News Radio.
Now you know with Rob Snow continues on News Radio.
Well, the stock markets are very happy today on this news about the Strait of Hormuz opening. Oil prices way down, more than 10% right now, $81.38 US a barrel. And that's given a lift to the stock market. Toronto's higher by about 1% right now in record territory, up 344 points. The Dow is nudging up against its all-time high, just shy of 50,000. And the NASDAQ and the S&P 500 setting new highs today as well. It's been a wild ride, though, for some specific stocks this week. It has not been a great week for shares in BRP. That's Bombardier Recreational Products. That stock just crashed on Wednesday. It lost more than a third of its value because of a change in U.S. tariffs. It rebounded by about 7% yesterday and today, but it's still around down around 22% for the week. So this is a company that makes skidoos and sea-doos, and business had actually been doing very well. But then the Trump administration changed the calculation for tariffs for the steel, copper, and aluminum components that go into BRP's products. The tariff only used to apply to the value of those materials themselves, but now the tariff applies to the entire finished product, be that a skidoo or a sea-doo. And that means BRP's profits are expected to go down by 60%. BRP said that could cost the company about $500 million. But of course, for every loser, there is a winner. And one of the big winners on the TSX this week has been a quantum computing company known as Xanadu. Quantum computing company, okay, not the really bad 1970s roller skating movie starring Olivia Newton-John, although it had a great soundtrack featuring ELO. But 1 week ago, that stock was a $10 stock on the TSX. And today it's in the $44 range, and it's traded as high as $57. So in the last week, it's up more than 300%. Xanadu Quantum. This company is now worth $15 billion on paper, despite having annual revenues of a little more than $4 million and no profits. It is a $15 billion company. The NHL playoffs are all set. Regular season is over. The broadcast schedule for the playoffs is out. I find it a bit of a head scratcher myself, but things get going tomorrow. Game 1 between the Ottawa Senators and the Carolina Hurricanes, 3:00 Eastern time on Sportsnet. The traditional Hockey Night in Canada broadcast on Saturday night does not feature a Canadian team, and it doesn't start at 7:00 Eastern. The primetime game is the Flyers and Penguins at 8:00 Eastern. I was thinking the league would put the Habs on Saturday night, but I was wrong. The Habs and Lightning play Sunday, 5:45 p.m. Eastern. These are all on Sportsnet. And the first game for the Oilers and the Ducks isn't until Monday, 10 p.m. Eastern time. As for the individual stats for the players to end the season, Connor McDavid with the most points, 138. Nathan McKinnon with the most goals, 53. Connor McDavid with the most assists, 90. For the goalies, Scott Wedgwood, best goals against average this season, 202 goals against average. And he also had the best save percentage at 921. Ilya Sorokin had the most shutouts. New York Islanders goalie, 7 shutouts this season. Hey, Talkback Friday, free for all Talkback is coming up. You can call right now, 1-833-668-2577. Let's get the conversation going.
It's time to talk back.
On Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Call now.
And have your say.
1-833-668-2577.
Welcome to Talkback. It's 2 hours of debate and discussion on the big issues of the day. It's the Friday free-for-all. And that means we don't come up with topics on Friday. We always have a few ready to go, just conversation starters. We always prefer on Fridays to know what's on your mind. So what's on your mind? What do you want to talk about? If you want to talk about something that's been in the news, there's always news. We had lots of news this week. We have lots of news today. If you want to talk about something you think should be in the news, you feel free to raise it here, whatever it happens to be. It can be serious. It can be not so serious. We have a phone line for you. All of our phone lines are open right now. 1-833-668-2577. 1-833-668-2577. Call right now. You'll get on the air. As always, if you have never called before, just mention that to us. Just tell us you're a first-time caller, and we will make your call a priority. I mean, the biggest news story of the day is about the Strait of Hormuz. It's open. That's the biggest news in the world right now. That news hit at around 9:00 this morning, Eastern time, by way of Trump, in part, on Truth Social. He had a couple of posts this morning. The first one said, Iran has just announced that the Strait of Iran is fully open and ready for full passage. Thank you. The Strait of Iran. But I guess, you know what he means. But then about 20 minutes later, he posted the Strait of Hormuz is completely open and ready for business and full passage. But the naval blockade will remain in full force and effect as it pertains to Iran only until such time as our transaction with Iran is 100% complete. This process should go very quickly in that most of the points are already negotiated. Thank you for your attention to this matter. President Donald J. Trump. So, as I mentioned, stock markets love that news. Way up today. Oil prices way down in the low $80 US a barrel range, which in my mind is good news. Beats the alternative, right? Look at the price of gas. Stock market way up. Also beats the alternative if you looked at your retirement account. There was also a posting from the foreign minister of Iran on X, and it said, in line with the ceasefire in Lebanon, the passage for all commercial vessels through the Strait of Hormuz is declared completely open for the remaining period of the ceasefire. So that is the ceasefire between Israel and Lebanon that was announced yesterday by Donald Trump and took effect at 5 o'clock Eastern time yesterday afternoon, 10-day ceasefire. And Donald Trump took credit for making that happen. So here's where we are as we begin the Friday free-for-all talk back. The Strait of Hormuz is apparently open. We have a ceasefire between Israel and Lebanon. We have a ceasefire between Iran and the United States that seems to be holding. The oil price is way down. The stock market is way up. Do you give any credit to Donald Trump for any of these developments? Does he deserve any credit for this? What would you say? 1-833-668-2577. 1-833-668-2577. Canada Post back in the news for its plan to end home delivery of the mail. The company announced the first 136,000 addresses that will be converted to community mailboxes, but eventually it's going to become the reality for about 4 million home addresses across the country. No more postal carrier coming to the house. And in addition to ending that service, a lot of rural post offices are going to close. So it really is the end of an era. No more home delivery of the mail. The corporation, Canada Post, says there can be exceptions. People would have to apply. People with mobility issues or disabilities, they can't make it to a community mailbox. There's going to be some kind of application process for them to keep the home delivery of the mail. But you know the story. Canada Post is losing billions of dollars every year. And it's not just the drop in old-fashioned letter mail. It's also being, and this is what Canada Post says, it's being undercut by other courier companies on the parcel side of the business. Its cost structure is such that it just can't compete with non-unionized courier companies. And the government, for quite some time now, has been bailing out Canada Post to the tune of billions of dollars with your money. And the Prime Minister has said, this cannot continue. It will not continue. Mark Carney said Canada Post cannot stay the way it is, losing $10 million a day. Changes need to happen, and now they're happening. So we have discussed Canada Post in the past, and now that this plan is being put into motion, we want to know, are you on board with it or not? Are you on board with this plan to end home delivery of the mail or not? Do you support the plan by Canada Post to end home delivery of the mail? 1-833-668-2577. 1-833-668-2577. Those are just some conversation starters. Whatever happens to be on your mind, we are willing to give you a hearing. That's how we roll on a Friday. It's the Friday Free for All Talkback. I'm Rob Snow. This is Now You Know. And this is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
One more conversation starter I want to throw out. Justin Trudeau. Yeah, that guy. What he's been up to since leaving politics. You do a search, lots of articles, columns about what Justin Trudeau has been up to since he took his walk in the snow this week. Not too many of them are flattering. Some people they're kind of annoyed. They're even mad that Justin Trudeau seems to be living his best life, hanging out with the pop star girlfriend, hitting the slopes with Prince Harry, going to the Coachella Music Festival, swaying to the music of Justin Bieber, eating takeout, baseball cap on backwards, and altogether looking like he's having a great time. It seems to have touched a nerve for some people. They see him, of course, as being responsible for a lot of the problems the country's facing right now, and it's as though he doesn't have a care in the world. So here's what I would ask you. Justin Trudeau was the Prime Minister of Canada, held the job longer than most, the leader of a G7 country, trying to manage a $2 trillion economy. Is this the way a former Prime Minister of Canada should behave after they leave office? Hanging out with celebrities, pictures on yachts, pictures in fancy restaurants, partying it up at music festivals in California. Is this sort of behavior dignified for an elder statesman? Should he behave in a more dignified way? I mean, it's out there. It's being debated all over the place. Some people are saying, leave the man alone. It's his private life. He's not a politician anymore. It's none of our business. Why can't you just be happy for the guy? Others are saying, it's just kind of weird. We're talking about a guy who was a world leader. He's in his mid-50s, for crying out loud. He was born the same year I was. And he seems to be acting more like someone who's in their teens or 20s. What do you think? Justin Trudeau, you let him live his best life? Or should he be presenting a more respectable image, given the office that he held for so long? Just one more, 1-833-668-2577. It's the Friday Free for All Talkback. Marianne is in Halifax. Thanks for calling, Marianne.
Hi. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. What's on your mind?
I won't say too much about your recent diatribe about Trudeau. That's the lost decade. He didn't act like a statesman when he was a statesman, so I'm not surprised. But it's none of my business what he does now because he's no longer running my country. No, okay. I called about the Canada Post decision.
Canada Post, sure. What do you think of it?
Yeah. Well, a decade ago, when the former Harper government was in, we lost our door-to-door delivery. We're in a suburb outside Halifax. And we have the lovely little Canada Post boxes. And we got used to them, sort of. And then the Liberals campaigned and said, we're going to reverse all that. Well, the first question I asked my MP after the first year was, well, when are you going to reverse it? And I got the spin. And they never reversed it. So I think it's kind of funny that now the current new Liberal government is just going to double down on what they castigated the Tories for doing a decade ago. But right. It's just it's reality. Canada Post is in a mess. There's a lot of things you could say about why they're in a mess. A lot of decisions that could have been made differently. I mean, I get box to box delivery every day of the week. I don't need them to come every day of the week. If they came 2 or 3 days of the week, that would be fine for the amount of stuff that comes by mail. But for some reason, that decision won't be made. They think of the amount of money that they could save if they only did certain neighborhoods 2 or 3 days out of the week.
Right.
Based on volume. That would be probably a 50% saving in delivery costs right there.
Yeah. And would you need 55,000 employees working at Canada Post if you were doing that?
No,
of course not.
Absolutely not. There are a lot of decisions that they can make that they won't make. And what I find difficult to swallow is that they don't have to make tough decisions that wouldn't hurt anybody, but they will make tough decisions that do harm people. Like closing rural post offices, to me, is a really, really terrible idea. Those kinds of things, rural post offices, small rural schools, those kinds of things are the things that are a lifeblood for rural communities. So no problem for them to make those decisions, but they won't make decisions that would be sensible.
Okay, Marianne, thank you for your call. 1-833-668. There you go. One opinion on Canada Post today. 1-833-668-2577. From Halifax to Calgary, we go. Mark is up next. Hello, Mark.
Hey, Rob. How you doing?
Good, Mark. What's on your mind?
Well, I'm going to go on a topic from earlier this this week, I think, or late last week, about the jaywalkers in Calgary and how we had 15 or so fatalities this year due to jaywalkers and distracted driving, whatever the reasons are. And I just wanted to say, my lady and I just got back from Thailand and Hong Kong, and one of the leading causes of death in Thailand is jaywalking. I mean, it's just crazy over there with the traffic. But in Hong Kong, in 2024, they had 52 deaths of jaywalkers being struck by vehicles in a city of 7.3 million people. Wow. The government took serious action and said, we need to enforce more of the jaywalkers. And it wasn't so much, a little bit of the distracted driving. So they dispatched more foot police out on the streets of Hong Kong, and the fines got heavier for anybody that was caught jaywalking. Because you don't have the right of way in Hong Kong. Jaywalkers don't have the right of way in Hong Kong. They also instilled crosswalks that give fair warning to drivers prior to getting to the crosswalks. They're well lit up. And when you go through Hong Kong, you see hardly anybody wants to cross illegally across the street, not only for the fear of getting hit by a car, but the fear of a heavy fine. I would almost surmise to say that Ottawa, Toronto, Vancouver, along with Calgary, are experiencing the same mortality rate from pedestrians getting hit by vehicles, and wondering why aren't we enforcing that pedestrians do not have the right of way and start really stepping down on those people that are jaywalking and breaking the law in that sense.
Very good, Mark. Thank you for weighing in on that one. I'm Rob Snow's Friday Free for All Talkback. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lines available. Whatever happens to be on your mind, we're good to hear you out. You can join our discussion. Canada Post, Strait of Hormuz, Justin Trudeau's partying ways, whatever it happens to be. Pick a topic of your own. We'll go with it. This is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Rick in Dartmouth on the Friday Free for All Talkback. Hello, Rick in Dartmouth.
Hey, Rob. Good talking to you again. I know you're a busy man. Look, here's one for you. Can you remember the 3 countries that were named by the United States as the axis of evil?
Yeah, Iran, North Korea,
Iraq.
And North Korea, Iraq. Okay, all right. Yeah.
So which of those?
You know the speechwriter who coined that for George Bush? Do you know the speechwriter?
David Frum.
David Frum, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Barbara Frum's son. Anyway, yeah. Look, I never cared too much for David Frum, but here's the question: why has North Korea not been invaded by the United States? Well, there are probably a lot of reasons. One might be China is next door. Another reason might be they have nuclear weapons. And so this leads to me to my, in somewhat jovial question. What would Trump do if Canada, who has plenty of uranium and lots of ways to enrich it, decided they wanted to have nuclear weapons? Would Trump invade us to prevent that? Okay, that's the question. Because, I mean, he's crazier than a bedbug. You can see that, every day. And the idea of him going after Denmark sort of opens the door to that question, in my view. So if Mark Carney, with his brand new shiny majority, decided, hey, we don't want to be invaded by the United States, and the only way to actually prevent that is that if you have nuclear weapons. So
yeah, I asked our listeners about this. Gosh, must be about 6 weeks ago now, something like that. Should Canada pursue nuclear? Pursue a nuclear weapons program, kickstart a nuclear weapons program. I did a whole show on Talkback about that. It was a resounding no. They even put the question to the Minister of National Defense, David McGuinty. Is there any interest in Canada kickstarting a nuclear weapons program as the ultimate deterrent, to a possible, say, U.S. aggression. And David McGuinty rolled it out, saying, no, we have no interest in doing that.
Right. That's the pragmatic, way for any government to go. But then the question becomes, what would it take for the government of Canada to change its mind? So that would be my last little tidbit. What would it take? Would crossing the Niagara River with some tanks and taking Windsor? I don't know.
Not sure. I'm not sure. I mean, at the when all this stuff was going on about Greenland, we had people writing in some of the national newspapers saying we should pursue our nuclear weapons program. We had people talking about, is Trump about to put little green men along the Montana-Alberta border? I mean, this is where the conversation was at the time. Thank you, Rick in Dartmouth. Have a great weekend. It's the Friday Free-for-All Talkback, folks. We'd love to hear from you today. Last one of the week. So chime in on some of our topics or pick one of your own. This is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
It's a Friday free-for-all Talkback. If you want to talk about sports, I'm always down for that. NHL playoffs start tomorrow. Habs in, Oilers in, Ottawa Senators in. That's the team I cheer for. Who do you like? What team are you cheering for? Leafs didn't make it. Flames didn't make it. But more importantly, the Leafs didn't make it. If you're fans of those teams, though, does that just mean you're not interested? You're going to tune it out? And if anyone can figure out what the heck is wrong with the Jays, I know that lots of injuries. But gosh, they haven't been playing very well to start the season. Yeah, lots of injuries. But based on what you've seen so far from the Jays, gosh, are the Jays going to do as well this season as they did last season when they almost won it all? 1-833-668-2577. Eric's in Halifax today. Hello, Eric.
Hey, how you doing, Rob?
Yeah, I'm good, Eric. Yeah, I'm excited for the playoffs,
Yeah, well, I know that you love your Ottawa, but I don't think they're the Cinderella team. It should be the two best teams in the National Hockey League, and that's Colorado and Carolina. That's who should meet in the Stanley Cup. As far as the three Canadian teams go, I kind of favoring towards Montreal. I don't know why, because Edmonton's been there twice, and they've had the taste of it. They've been knocking on the door. And as far as the Blue Jays go, well, once they get all their players back, and it's early, but as far as the World Series goes, it's going to be the Dodgers and the Yankees. And
you think it'll be the Dodgers and the Yankees? Eh? Okay.
Yep. Yeah, they're the superior teams. I mean, they got Derek Cole back there for the Yankees. You know what Judge can do. You know what Bellinger can do. You know what Scranton could do. I mean, they're just so much powerful. And of course, the Dodgers, they're going to buy a World Series, and they probably be the first team to three-peat. I mean, there hasn't been too many teams that three-peat in sports as we know it. But I mean, I love to give your Ottawa a shot, but I just don't think they have They might make a little bit of noise, but I don't think they can get to the altar.
Well, they're pretty hot coming in. One of the best teams of the last 2 months. I mean, this is a team that was in last place in January. They've been on a heck of a run, and I think Ottawa has better goaltending. I think if Ottawa's goalie plays better than Carolina's goalie, I think Ottawa can win. I think you're going to be surprised. But just on the Jays, I mean, I get it. The injuries are a factor. Just look up and down the lineup. Like Addison Barger's out; he's got a bad ankle. George Springer has a broken toe. Alejandro Kirk has a broken thumb. This Santander guy is just like an international man of mystery, but I don't know what's going on with that guy. But
I look at teams. Like, I don't do individually. So everybody says, well, you don't know nothing about sports. Well, I know a lot about sports. I'm sorry to bust their bubbles. I know a lot about sports, and I follow teams, individually teams. I know who's doing all the scoring and who's getting all the best goals against and all that. But, I mean, on paper, you got to go with Carolina and Colorado.
Yeah, but they don't play the games. Yeah, they don't play the games on paper. They don't play the games on paper. I mean, if they play the games on paper, let's just skip the playoffs and let's give Nathan McKinnon the Stanley Cup. Because nobody's going to beat Colorado. All right, Eric, got to run. Okay. I can appreciate. I mean, Colorado looks great. I mean, they'd be my favorite right now to win it. They should win it all. They've got the leading goal scorer. They got the best defenseman in the world, and their goalie's super. Emerson up next in Calgary. Emerson. Hi, Emerson.
How you doing, Rob? Thanks again for taking my call. I just want to talk about Trudeau. Canadians have to stop electing people born with a golden spoon. I am done with these millionaires coming in wanting to be prime minister and then saying to the middle class and the poor, oh, I'm going to make it right for you. It's not going to happen because they need to experience what the middle class and the poor go through on a daily basis to understand. These guys don't get it. Trudeau won in 2015 based on one word alone, marijuana. That's it. That was it. He never had another majority after that. It was minority. A lot of times he was lucky that the vote split the way it did, or he might have lost one of those minority government elections. But honest to God, he's a clown. Anyone that actually thinks this guy got up there and people were frightened of him or respected him, they're fooling themselves. He was a clown everywhere he went. I'll never forget what happened in India. Oh, my God. The guy was an absolute idiot. Yeah. I mean, what an embarrassment to Canada. And I'm not saying that because I don't like liberals. I'm saying it because the guy literally walked in at the right time with the name and the marijuana word, and that was it. And I hope Canadians will wake up and put somebody in there like Paulia, for example, grassroots, came up the hard way, single mother, put him up for adoption. This is the type of guy who understands, who gets what people go through. You notice he says all the time.
But could you say the same thing? Could you say this? Does Mark Carney qualify there? Mark Carney was born in Northern Canada, right? Mark Carney was born in Northern Canada to school teachers. He doesn't come from, affluence, right? Went to public school.
He also forgot.
In some ways, and I'm not here to defend the Prime Minister or defend Poilievre. Yeah. I'm interested in talking certainly about Justin Trudeau and just the way he's conducting himself right now, whether it's becoming of a former Prime Minister to be behaving this way.
He's a clown. He's a clown. And I mean, I'm not going to talk about Carney because you know what? It's Trudeau that's fired me up. I'm coming in hot today. The guy is a clown, and honestly, every time you mention his name on the program, I just get so tight, and it takes me a few beers to relax. Have a nice weekend. God bless you. Go, Senators, go! Woo!
All right. Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Emerson, for that. Okay, be right back. There's actually a survey out today from Angus Reid. I'll pull up the results here shortly. They were asking Canadians all across the country, who's Canada's team? There are 3 Canadian teams in the playoffs. Who's Canada's team? It's not the Senators. They're my team, but they're not Canada's team. Seems to be the Habs are Canada's team for the playoffs this time around. I can understand the Habs been around forever, right? A lot of Habs fans all across the country. A lot of Edmonton fans, too, all across the country because of those great dynasties of the Gretzky era. And, of course, a lot of Connor McDavid fans now. This is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Yeah, Friday free-for-all. Talkback. Eric in Cole Harbor. Hello, Eric.
Hey, Rob. How you doing?
Very good, Eric. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. It's 15 degrees down here, buddy. So I hope you guys are enjoying.
It's going to be 18 degrees here, so I'll take that. It's going to be 18 degrees here, so I'm down with that.
I'll take that too. A couple quick things. First of all, with the crosswalk thing, just make it the law that when a pedestrian presses a button, It's against the law for them to move into the crosswalk until all traffic has come to a complete stop. End of story. If that happens, then there's no problem. Now what they do here in Halifax and Cole Harbour, anyway, they press the button, they walk. And that's why we have so many unfortunate incidents. With Trudeau, your last caller there, once a clown before he was Prime Minister, clown when he was Prime Minister, and a clown afterwards. That's the end of the story for me with that one. Now,
really?
Yeah.
What I'm trying to get at is this really the way a former prime minister should be conducting himself or themselves?
Well, that's a good question. I've always been, if you're not harming anybody but yourself, and he's out of the political life, actually, it's his own business.
It's his own business. Okay.
Yeah,
but it doesn't mean we can't be critical of him if he's the one putting it up on his social media, or his girlfriend is, Katy Perry. She's putting it up on her social media. They can't just say, "Well, it's our private life. It's our private." Well, it's your private life that you're sharing with millions of people on social media. It's not private then, is it? Right?
No, I agree with that. That's a good point. It's either you're going to be on one side of the fence or the other. I really don't know how to answer. But what I really wanted to talk to you about, Rob, I found this very interesting yesterday. You're talking about AI and how there's going to be a massive unemployment situation because of AI, and maybe relatively quickly, as this guy from Axios suggested. Here's a probability. Here's a possibility. I'm not saying it's a probability. I'm not saying it's going to happen. Before on your show, a number of times I've expressed my concern about digital IDs and central bank digital currency. Well, if all these people are going to lose their work, the government's probably going to say, how many people are going to be able to, how many people are going to end up living in tents if they don't have a job. So the government might, they want this digital ID hard, and you can go check Europe, check the central bankers, all that kind of stuff. They might offer this universal basic income with a prerequisite that you have to have.
It just so happens there's news on that today. May I?
Is there?
I'm not sure if you're aware of this. Elon Musk. Did you see this today? Elon Musk on X?
No, I haven't.
This is what he said. This is what he put on X today. Universal high income, he says, not even basic income. Universal high income via checks issued by the federal government is the best way to deal with unemployment caused by AI. AI robotics will produce goods and services far in excess of the increase in the money supply. There will be no inflation.
Well, you know what I mean? That's interesting. I never saw that. But here's my concern. If you have digital ID, then, like I say, I've done a deep dive into this, they actually have the capability of controlling your money if you're into central bank digital currency. And that's the big concern a lot of people have about this. And what better way to get this people into this than having a mass unemployment and offering universal basic income or universal income. Right. So, I mean, that's trepidation. And I have trepidation about that. And I really think that we really should consider, people should start considering this. And I'll leave you with this, Rob. You take a look at England. Stammer wants this. They're trying to implement it. And the people in England they're saying 200, 300,000 people are out protesting against this. So it's a pretty serious concern. Anyways, I don't think you have much.
I gotta go. Yeah, have a good weekend. Thank you. Gotta go. Mike in Calgary. Let's take Mike's call here. Mike.
Hey.
Hi, Mike. Hi, Mike.
So I'm in on this Colorado thing. Yeah, they might look good on paper, but Winnipeg looked good on paper last year too, and they were out in the first round. So I'm hoping Colorado goes out in the first round.
Okay, who are you cheering for?
I would have to pick, if I was going to pick a Canadian team, it would be Montreal.
It would be Montreal.
I would never pick the Oilers. I was at the Flames game last night. Beautiful tribute to the LA Kings, Kopitar.
Yeah.
And that brings me to my next thing. Every time I'm at that Saddle Dome and they're playing that national anthem and the Canadian flag's dropping, Danielle Smith should be ashamed of herself for trying to tear Alberta apart from Canada. And that's how I feel about that.
Do you believe she's a separatist? You think that's what she's doing? She says she's not a separatist. She wants Alberta to remain in Canada.
Did Danielle Smith go down to Mar-a-Lago and hang out with Trump? Where do you think she got her ideas
Yeah,
from?
Justin Trudeau also went to Mar-a-Lago.
Yeah, well, Justin Trudeau, he stole from the people. Look at the We Charity scandal.
Well, I wouldn't say Justin Trudeau stole from the Canadian people through the We Charity scandal. Some of his family members were getting paid by We Charity when that was happening. Some of it, his mother was.
What was the SNC Lavalin scandal that he was involved in? And who worked
The
with
SNC.
him?
Okay, all right. You've thrown out a lot of stuff there, sir. We can go through that one by one, but it would take some time, and we're kind of out of time right now. I do thank you, though, for your call. 1-833-668-2577, and have your say. Start a conversation of your own on the Friday Free For All Talkback. This is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Jenna is in Calgary on the Friday Free For All Talkback. Hi, Jenna.
Hello. Happy Friday to you.
Happy Friday to you, too. Jenna, what's on your mind?
What's on my mind? I want to talk about our struggling Blue Jays. And I think people need to remember that championships hangover is a real thing, especially when you've come so heartbreakingly close to winning, only to fall just that inch short at the end. They worked their butts off last season, and it's got to be really hard to struggle with knowing that you put it all out there on the field, and it ultimately, for whatever reason, didn't end up going your way. On top of that, our Blue Jays have suffered a lot of emotional losses. Buck Martinez's health has gotten a little worse again, so this beloved icon has retired. Don Mattingly said he was going to retire and then move to another team. Bo Bichette, who was a great emotional center of the team, moved on to another opportunity. And I think we tend to forget that having this incredibly powerful, innate natural athleticism is only kind of the bottom tier of being a professional athlete. These guys have such an emotionally powerful passion for the sport that when they have a form of family-like atmosphere. So you're trying to deal with this loss basically as a family, and now members of your family have left. It can be real hard for these guys to bounce back from. But they started slow last year, and I have every faith in them, that they will bring it back together again. When it comes to hockey, I will happily cheer for any Canadian team. I love seeing them in the playoffs. But, if I am, even though I am ultimately a Habs fan, but go Canada. Let's go Canada and be on our own side, Canadians, in everything. Sports, unity, politics, caring for each other. Let's go, Canada.
All right. Thank you. That's a nice sentiment on a Friday. Thank you, Jenna, for your call. Angel in Halifax, you'll just have to wait just a few more minutes. We'll get right to you along with Steve in Windsor, Nova Scotia as well. Just hang on the line. We have to bring everyone right up to date on the latest breaking news, and then we'll be right back to the conversation on our Friday Free-for-All Talkback. I'm Rob Snow. This is Now You Know, and this is News Radio.
It's time to talk back
on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Call now
and have your say.
1-833-668-2577.
Welcome to hour number 2 of Talkback. I'm Rob Snow. It's our Friday Free-for-All Talkback. That means we're wide open on topics today. Let's get right back to our phone calls and go to Halifax, Nova Scotia today. Angel, hello there.
Hi, Rob. I love your show.
Hi there. Well, thank you. That's very kind of you.
You're welcome. Can I talk about Carney and the Liberal government?
By all means.
Okay. I don't believe that Mark Carney is working for Canada. I believe he is working for himself and Brookfield. He moved Brookfield out of Canada to the U.S., and he also evaded paying the tax because he moved his office in Bermuda. And all of these projects that he's pushing are all Brookfield entities, companies, and the government is going to be giving them billions of dollars for all of these projects, like the wind farm in Nova Scotia and then the housing initiatives. And there's so many scandals and so many conflicts of interest. He's the highest conflict of interest prime minister in our history. And so I feel that Carney is actually going to destroy Canada because of all of these, because of all of these bills that he's trying to push through. Bill C-10, Internet Control Censorship. Bill C-11, Streaming Act Censorship. And then there's Bill C-9, Hate Speech Without Defining. And then Bill C-5, Automatic Bail for Violent Offenders. Our crime rate has escalated so much since the Liberal government has got into power over 11 years. And there's homeless people. We've never had tent cities before, and now it is mushroomed all over Canada.
Yeah. Well, there were tent cities before Prime Minister Carney came to office. Right.
Yes, but that was through Trudeau.
Right.
So all of these foreign, people coming in, I'm all for, bringing in new people, but they haven't been vetted. These people that are terrorists, that have been in and out of the system, not being held accountable. There are so much dangerous crimes happening, and they're in and out. Like, as soon as the police are finished their paperwork, they're back on the streets. So it's gone crazy. And I don't understand why people continue to vote the Liberals back in when there is so much damage into our Canada. And we're being laughed at throughout the world that we're becoming a dictatorship. Carney is being so friendly with China that even Michael Ma would not admit that there is forced labor in China.
Yeah. We talked about that. Let's not forget Michael Ma was elected as a conservative, right? He was elected as a conservative before he crossed the floor. So the conservatives liked him until they didn't.
Yes, but the thing is that Mark Carney has the most floor crossings in history as well. He's not respecting
the most
our
since
vote.
the most since the First World War. No, I don't think it's in history, but yeah.
Right. So all of these people are getting something out of it. And we don't know what the deal is, but we know that it is illegal to offer people money, jobs, situations, and,
Well, we'll see what comes of it. We'll see what comes of it. Thank you. You're not a fan. You don't have Carney mania. I understand that. Yeah. I'll have to run, though. To Steve is in Windsor. Hello, Steve. Windsor, Nova Scotia.
Hello, Rob.
Yeah, hi, Steve. Good. Yeah.
Good to hear from you again.
Well, thank you for calling.
I just wanted. It was interesting. I was just listening to that lady going on there. Just Angel, I think her name was. And what's interesting is, at the end of the day, the reason why the Liberals are in power is simply because the Conservatives failed time after time to convince the people that they are a better alternative. And until they do that, there's nothing that's going to change. They have to get off their butts and show Canada that they are the party that Canadians should vote for. So that's just a comment on that. But I really wanted to talk a little bit about.
That's a valid point. By all means, yes.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. Back in 2024, we went through the process of telling Justin Trudeau that we no longer wanted him as prime minister and get out. And we did that through by-elections, and we did it through polls and whatever. And he did leave. And now I'm not sure if we're beginning to hear people complaining that he should be acting differently than what he's doing. So I find that really interesting that, we didn't want him, but now we're complaining to a little bit about should he be acting as a sort of mature, elderly
as a grown-up
official of a government.
Right. Yes.
Perhaps he should. And the fellows that, once again, the fellows that were calling Trudeau a clown. What derogatory term should I give to Harper and Scheer and O'Toole, because they lost to a clown? And that once again, it's the problem is that they attack the Liberal Party all of the time when they should be talking to the Conservative Party.
Let's talk a little bit about Mr. Trudeau. Could you see, for example, Stephen Harper or Jean Chrétien or Brian Mulroney or Trudeau Sr., rocking out with their pop star girlfriend, eating takeout, making out on a yacht, doing all of these things for the paparazzi? These were people of. Go ahead,
Rob. You may not have been alive at the time. Trudeau Sr. dated Barbara Streisand while he was Prime Minister. So Trudeau Sr. And do you remember seeing the little video of Trudeau walking behind the Queen and doing a little pirouette as he's walking?
Yeah.
I mean, he if anything, Trudeau Jr. was following in the steps of his dad. The other people, no, I don't see them. I
wanted to bring it off because it's really set some people off. They see this guy living the high life, living his best life, and they're left to deal with the wreckage. I mean wreckage that he has left behind, sir. Thank you for your call. This is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
To Waterloo, Catherine on the Friday Free for All Talkback. Hello, Catherine.
Hi, Rob. I enjoy your show.
Oh, I enjoy your call.
Question is, what was that our Prime Minister signed with the Premier of Alberta a little while back? They signed some kind of agreement?
MOU. Yeah, okay. Memorandum of Understanding.
Okay. What was that supposed to do?
Well, it is supposed to get a pipeline to the West Coast in British Columbia, an oil pipeline.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And
in order for that to happen, Alberta has to commit in a big way to pleasing the federal government on what's known as the industrial carbon tax, because there's the consumer carbon tax that has gone away, but there's still an industrial carbon tax. So the Alberta government has to satisfy the federal government on the industrial carbon tax. And the Alberta government has to usher along what's known as the Pathways Alliance project, which is a huge carbon capture and storage project, which is supposed to sequester CO2 to help fight climate change.
Oh, so with that, huh?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
You got it?
Thank you.
That's it?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
All right, Catherine. Thanks for the call. Yeah, we're still waiting to see what comes of that. The MOU, Memorandum of Understanding. It's a big issue in Alberta politics, certainly. Jack in Kitchener today. Hello, Jack.
Yeah, good evening. First-time caller. I like listening to your show. I want to talk about minimum wage.
Minimum wage. What about it?
I just think the government has done very little in the last 5 years to raise it. And had they done, every year for the last 35 years before that, minimum wage would be well over $30 an hour. But
oh, really? Okay.
Well, it'd be a lot higher than $17.60.
Yeah, $30 an hour for the minimum wage.
Well, if they seem to increase other things that cost us money, but when we get money, they don't seem to look at it every year and increase it and stuff. And had they done that, like I say, minimum wage would be probably over $30 an hour.
So
but
how much is the Big Mac? How much is the Big Mac combo at McDonald's supposed to cost, sir? If the minimum wage is $30 an hour, how much is the coffee at Tim Hortons going to cost if the minimum wage is $30 an hour? How much is a 2 egg? How much is a 2 egg breakfast? How much is a 2 egg? How much is a 2 egg breakfast supposed to cost at the local diner at a $30 an hour minimum wage?
I don't know.
I hear this all the time. People can't make a living on the minimum wage, but what else is new? Isn't that what the minimum wage is all about? Like, I never expected to rent my own apartment or own a house or drive a car or enjoy all the comforts of life when I was working for the minimum wage. If anything, the minimum wage is for low-skilled workers and students for part-time work. If anything, it's supposed to offer people the motivation to get a better job.
But nowadays, even today and stuff, they don't even want to pay you a living wage.
Well, you're talking about two different. You're not comparing apples to apples when you're talking about minimum wages and living wages.
Well, I'm just saying it's like minimum wage should be more than what it is.
Well, yeah, fair enough if that's what you think. I mean, I remember when it was the fight for 15. Do you remember the fight for 15? You know, people going to protest, fight for 15, fight for 15. We need a $15 an hour minimum wage. Well, the minimum wage in Ontario is almost $18 an hour now. So where does it end? Well, and what is the purpose of a minimum wage?
Pardon?
What is the purpose of a minimum wage?
I don't know.
You don't know?
I always thought it was like a started out job thing and stuff like that, and then as you got more experience or whatever and skill, that you got paid more money.
Well, yeah,
when you work for
exactly. Right. If you want a living wage, my advice would be stay in school or go back to school, upgrade your skills, get a better job that pays a higher wage, like a living wage. Like it's not rocket science. This is not Artemis 2 rocket science here. Minimum wages are designed as a basic labor standard, primarily for low-skilled, low-wage work, primarily done by students who work part-time. $30 an hour minimum wage? Come on, give your head a shake. This is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
It is Friday Free for All. Marion in Nova Scotia. Marion.
Hi. I'm calling about the changes to Canada Post. I agree with your earlier caller who thinks that reducing delivery days makes more sense than ending home delivery. And I have to wonder, has anyone in government estimated the pollution created by individuals who start driving to a community box 5 days a week? It seems to go against all these green initiatives. Even if we could get home delivery 1 day a week, that would guarantee delivery to people who don't drive, people who are disabled or sick or just can't afford a car. So that's my thought.
Okay.
Professor
Ian Lee, is that all you have to say about it? Professor Ian Lee has said we have a Potemkin post office right now. We have a Potemkin postal service. We have 55,000 employees working for an organization that has seen the demand for its business drop by 70%. Do we really need that?
I do think we need a postal service. I think that should be guaranteed by government, but we should also cut back so it isn't such a cost. I just think it's better to
So
cut
you're saying
costs.
instead of transitioning 4 million people over to the community mailbox system, what we should be doing is keep things sort of status quo with, where the deliveries are actually happening, just reduce the rate of the delivery.
Yes.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, 'cause, I mean, if you imagine, there are maybe 80 houses on my road. If they all start driving a couple of miles every day to go get their mail, that's going to be, their time, their gas money, more pollution. It seems to make more sense to me to still get home delivery, maybe one day a week.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Marion. Good to hear from you again. We appreciate your calls. John in Calgary. Hello, John.
Hey, Rob. Great show as always.
Yeah, thank you, John.
And that was a great point by your last caller. I do sympathise with that. Mine was about the caller before on the $30 minimum wage, which was absolutely hilarious. So I've got a different way to calculate minimum wage. So get me on this. The government can produce a number on what the living wage should be in any province. Any province can set the rate for minimum wage. And then the province also sets a number for the maximum hours you can work. So let's say I'm in Alberta. The government says after 70 hours a week, they'll lift me to the living wage. In other words, if I'm proving that I am working 2.5, 3 jobs, and I'm still not at minimum at living wage, then I'm uplifted by the government, demonstrating I'm not sat at home waiting for it, recognising we need people in minimum wage jobs. And then we've got 2 measures, that being the minimum wage itself and the maximum number of hours, that become political tools that people can vote and make a choice on. What do you think, Rob?
Yeah, I don't agree, because I think too often the comparison is made, the minimum wage should be a living wage. And I just don't buy into that. And I don't think people should buy into that as well, especially when you read the reports from the various living wage networks about what people are expected to have on a living wage as opposed to a minimum wage.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
The phone lines are empty. We've been going through the calls rather quickly today here on the Friday Free-for-All Talkback. So if you want to jump in, join the conversation, start one of your own, love to hear from you. I was thinking, Canada Post, just on Canada Post and the news that it's starting its transformation plan to community mailboxes. Just how much things have changed just in my lifetime. I'm a child of the 70s and 80s. I mean, when I was a kid, we used to have all kinds of stuff delivered to the house. We had the milkman, right? The milkman would come by a few days a week. Everyone knew the milkman. For us, I still remember the guy's name. Isaac. Isaac was the milkman. Hey, there's Isaac. He's the milkman. Everyone knew Isaac. Everyone loved Isaac. Isaac got a Christmas card, maybe a bottle of booze during the holidays. We also had milk in schools. I don't think they do that anymore. Send the kids off to school with their milk money. Probably not. Lactose intolerant, right? Newspapers. Of course, I didn't have a paper route. Certainly had friends who had paper routes. And in the house I grew up in, we had more than one newspaper delivered to the house. Every day we got the Cape Breton Post, the Halifax Herald, and I believe the other paper was called, I can't remember if it was called, maybe some callers in Halifax would know, was it the Daily News or was it the Star? I'm trying to remember. Maybe over the years it was both. But I remember my dad, he would come home from work every day, shortly after 4:00 in the afternoon, and that was his time. He was not to be disturbed. He was going to read the paper. But 3 newspapers at the house delivered every day. Now we don't get any. And of course, mail every day delivered to the house doesn't happen anymore. And yet, while all of that has disappeared, people are getting all sorts of other things delivered to the house that they never used to get delivered to the house because of the gig economy. Like people are getting McDonald's delivered to the house. People are getting, groceries delivered to the house. Something that seems to be growing in popularity are these, the meal kits, the subscription meal services, not necessarily like prepared meals, but these subscription services, they deliver the food to your house and you cook the dinner at home and everything is measured out and the recipe is right there. I've never tried those. My wife has tried those. She's actually quite fond of them. We don't have them here. She was using it when she was in Charlottetown, taking care of her dad, who was having some health problems. But it's really amazing how times have changed. And now this is going to be another change. No more home delivery of the mail, because Canada Post says we can't afford to do it anymore. The union isn't happy, and there are predictions that a lot of layoffs could be on the way. But the plan is being put into motion now to end home delivery of the mail. And we have been asking today, do you support that decision? Alternatives have been proposed, such as keep it the way it is, but just don't deliver the mail every day. What do you think? 1-833-668-2577, 1-833-668-2577, as I get a little nostalgic there. Kathy in Lethbridge. Hello, Kathy.
Hi. I just had a comment about the previous callers with the minimum wage.
Yeah, minimum wage. Sure.
I think it's kind of a maybe I don't know if I would say privileged idea to think that minimum wage is for only low-skilled, low-paid workers. There are so many jobs that need filling that are only paying minimum wage, or even like under $20 for people that have gone to school for years. Like, I just think that minimum wage and overall wages just have not increased with the cost of living lately.
Well, that's a different, that's something else altogether. But what we're debating today, just because of that previous caller's comment who thought the minimum wage should be $30 an hour, is what is the purpose of a minimum wage? What do you see as the purpose of a minimum wage?
I think it's kind of different for everybody and how they view that, but I think minimum wage should be something that, obviously, yes, it's a starting wage, but I think that it'll ultimately also be like, students, you're right, and people that are starting out, but also how can you even start out if the minimum wage is so low, and how can you climb that?
But what is the purpose of a minimum wage, if not to be a starting wage for the bare minimum for someone who is just beginning their working career?
I'm saying that's what it is, but I think that it should be increased, because there's no way that anyone can really
make a living?
Work up from that point from the minimum wage, because the starting
but
is so low.
But how can you say that when so many other... I worked for the minimum wage for years. Like for much of the 1990s, man, in Ontario, the minimum wage was stuck at $6.85 an hour. I worked for $6.85. Like for years, I worked for $6.85 an hour in Ontario. And
the cost of living then was a lot different than it is now. And I'm not saying that you should be able to drive a nice car.
But I didn't have expectations that I was going to, quote unquote, make a living on the minimum wage.
Exactly, and that's just what I'm saying is, like, you shouldn't have
Like, for example, you have the Alberta Living Wage Network, okay? So in Lethbridge, the Living Wage Network in Alberta says the living wage is $22.30 an hour. Okay, it's $23.40 in High River. It's $22.30 an hour in Edmonton and Calgary. It's more expensive. It's $26.50 an hour. That's what they say is the living wage. And yet you hear it all the time. Oh my gosh, look at the minimum wage. It's only $15 an hour. Right? Well, I would say, what's the point? What's the point? Yeah, the minimum wage is $15 an hour, but are you really expecting to make a living on the minimum wage? Because what we hear from the Alberta Living Wage Network, for example, is minimum wages should be closer to living wages. I don't happen to believe that. Because when you look at the report from the Alberta Living Wage Network, what they say is a living wage is somebody should be able to rent a 3-bedroom apartment or a townhouse and drive a car, own their own car, and cover their child care and have a cell phone and have 2 weeks set aside and pay in case of an emergency and be able to take a trip on a vacation and spend a couple of $100s a month on entertainment. That's fine if that's what you think the living wage should be. But I certainly, as someone who spent years working for the minimum wage, never expected to rent a 3-bedroom apartment working for the minimum wage. This is Talkback on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Yeah, just some random thoughts on Justin Trudeau. Sparked some debate this week when he popped up in social media feeds, hat on backwards, hanging out with the pop star girlfriend. It really pisses people off. He still has his admirers who are saying, "Oh, leave the poor guy alone. He's not the prime minister anymore. Let him live his life." I guess here's how I look at it. So much commentary on this week across the news media. I would rather see Justin Trudeau, I suppose, hanging out at a music festival than making decisions in the prime minister's office anymore. You know, it's too bad that wasn't the case between 2015 and 2025. Canada might be a better place right now if Justin Trudeau had spent, say, more time at Coachella than making the decisions that he made that are going to have a lasting and negative impact for years to come on this country. But I'll tell you, some of the commentary this week about Mr. Trudeau, it has not been flattering, even in the mainstream media. I mean, people are using words like cringe. You know, it's cringe to see Justin Trudeau behaving the way that he's behaving. Someone wrote that it makes them gag, makes them want to gag when they see Justin Trudeau, you know, hanging out, living the good life. Well, so many Canadians are dealing with the consequences of his government. And others have said, you know, is this really what we should expect from a former prime minister? Is this how a former prime minister should conduct themselves? I really do think that's a fair question. I mean, you think about this. Okay, Pierre Trudeau leaves office 1984. What does he do? What does he do? He goes back to work at his law practice at Heaney Blakey in Montreal. He writes books. He writes essays on constitutional law, on national unity. He inserts himself into the constitutional debates of the time. He's not hanging out with a pop star. Brian Mulroney leaves office in 1993. What does he do? Joins some corporate boards, like the board of Barrick Gold, joins a prestigious law firm, Norton Rose Fulbright, publishes a memoir. Jean Chrétien leaves office in 2003. What does he do? Joins Heaney Blakey in Montreal, same law firm as his longtime colleague Pierre Trudeau, and sits on the board of directors of some big companies as well, and he publishes a memoir. Stephen Harper leaves office in 2015. What does he do? He creates his own firm, Stephen Harper and Associates. He starts leading the IDU, the International Democratic Union, promoting the conservative movement all over the world. He travels the world. He gives speeches as an elder statesman. And he joins the boards of some companies like Colliers International. The question was always going to be, what was Justin Trudeau going to do after leaving politics? Seriously, what was he going to do? Maybe give the odd speech, charge a big speaking fee. That's what he was doing before he entered politics. That's what he was doing even when he was an MP. He was giving speeches and charging speaking fees, charging charities for speaking fees, no less. Justin Trudeau's not going to join a law firm. And would you want Justin Trudeau on the board of directors of your company? So what else is he supposed to do other than spend his time much the same way he spent his time as prime minister, just being famous. Look on the bright side, folks. At least he's not making laws anymore. That's how I kind of see it. How do you see it? It's Talkback. I'm Rob Snow, Friday Free-for-All. This is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
I mentioned this survey from Angus Reid just very quickly. They did a survey. Okay, there are 3 teams in the Stanley Cup playoffs this year, 3 Canadian teams, Ottawa Senators, Montreal Canadiens, Edmonton Oilers. Which one would you like to see win the Stanley Cup? All hockey fans, this is a survey of 975 Canadians all across the country. All hockey fans, 46% said the Habs, 34% said the Oilers, and only 15% said the Senators. 4% said I don't want any of them to win. But in the West, 55% said the Oilers. In Western Canada, only 28% said the Habs. Only 9% said the Senators. 8% said I don't want any of them to win. Maybe they're Calgary fans. In the East, is totally flipped, and most of the people are cheering for the Habs. 55% in the East cheering for the Habs. 25% cheering for the Oilers, 18% cheering for the Senators. That's a little interesting. Bit of a divide there. But it was 72% who said, I would like to see a Canadian team win overall, which is up from past surveys. John in Calgary up next. Hi, John.
Hello, Mr. Snow.
Yeah. Mr. Snow is my father's name. I'm Rob. Yeah, go ahead.
All right, Rob. I just want to comment there about Princess Trudeau.
Right.
His resume before he was prime minister. He was what? A teacher and a boxer?
Bouncer. Yeah, bouncer.
Bouncer.
And he was a boxer. Yeah.
So I don't know why everybody keeps bringing him up now, because he's not a politician. He got in because of his name, and he was a little bit in there. People wanted him in at the time.
Well, he won 3 elections. He won 3 elections, sir. Had the job for a long time. 10 years is a long time to have the job, right? Oh, he dropped. Okay. Sorry, John. Then you dropped there. Linda, Southern Alberta. Hello, Linda.
Hello.
Hi, Linda.
Yeah, I just wanted to comment about your living wage and your minimum wage.
Yeah.
Well, I feel like the minimum wage, it's a minimum wage because you have no experience. You're opting to get experience. So your lawyer or your employers, basically putting out a little money to make sure that you get experience. And those people that are keep increasing their minimum wage, the problem happens is they lose hours. So now you don't have a living wage no longer because you're not getting a 40-hour week. And if they cut your hours enough, you have no benefits. So take the minimum wage, put in the hours, get the experience, move on.
Experience, climb the ladder.
Yeah.
Right?
I think that's what it's supposed to be about, not I've got a job now, I'm wearing 30
living
hours.
Wage. Right. To me, I mean, this whole debate, living wages, minimum wages, we're not comparing apples to apples. It's apples and oranges here.
Yeah. I mean, you pay for the experience, right? And if it's not the job you like, then you find a different job. And your employer's out all that time they put in training you. So
I agree with you, Linda. I agree with you. Thank you for your call. Thank you for all your calls this week. We'll be back on Monday. Have a wonderful weekend, and good luck to the Canadian teams in the NHL playoffs. I'm Rob Snow. This is Now You Know.